the people of sake actually brought me into sake.
Back in 1988, this place was actually in Ginza on the main drag.
At first it was kind of soy sauce, it was miso.
To the point where it actually changed my life.
New Year's Day 1989.
Not just sake as a beverage, but all the culture and history.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Sake on Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to expanding the dialogue surrounding Japan's iconic beverages, sake and shochu, and of course awamori, which is made possible with the support of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. My name is John Gautner, and with me today is Cindy Bissig. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hello, John. I'm good.
Together, we'll be talking with Julian Houseman and hearing his story of finally opening his own sake bar called Sake House. Julian's a good friend of mine and a business associate. For those of you that do not know, he and I work together on sake industry news, and now he's gone and opened his own sake pub. Julian, how are you today?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
Very cool. So I'm going to start. I've got a handful of questions I'd like to ask you because I'm genuinely interested in what you're doing. But I'm going to start with the biggest question. What in the world possessed you to open a sake bar and spend most of your time on the other side of the counter? I mean, I think you've got some experience in the service industry, which should have told you it's not exactly an easy line of work. What got into you?
It's been, yeah. I mean, I did my first few years in Japan back in the early 2000s. I was doing a lot of hospitality work. And yeah, on reflection, it does seem kind of strange because I got burnt out with doing that and moved away from, doing the night jobs. But it's always been in the back of my mind to do a sake bar at some point. It's just one part of being, in charge of my own my own business, my own destiny, if you like. And also from the years of going to sake bars all around Osaka and Kansai, I guess one of the things, and I don't know, maybe other people don't, look at the venues the same way when they're out drinking, but I would always be looking at places thinking, I like this place, but I would change this, or I like this place, but like this place is really cool, but I wish it was non-smoking. And this place is really cool, but I wish they would, I wish they would have better music. They've got no music, or there's no ambience. Well, this place is really cool, but it's too expensive. Well, this place is, there's always that kind of thing that I was looking at and thinking, if I was to do a sake bar, I'd do this, which is now kind of maybe seems quite foolish because now I've put myself in that firing line of everyone's coming to my sake bar and saying, well, he's done a sake bar, but this is what I would do with it. So
Have you lined up all the conditions that you said you would do?
yes, so I can at least say, I mean, I think I've made the place, because that was kind of the whole, thing for me, was making the place that I wanted to go to, which is a place that has a good selection of sake. It's got a bit of a vibe. Hopefully, it's not like bright lights like a ramen restaurant kind of thing. It's kind of a bit moody. There's some decent, I like to think there's decent music playing. There's enough.
We'll get to that.
There's enough food to have a snack, but it's not like you have to come in, you have to have a meal. It's not a restaurant. So if you just want to sit there and have a drink, you can have a drink. But if you do want to have a nibble of something, there is, and it's also the food itself is, I mean, I guess that was also one of the things that's always been my, the little stickler for me with drinking sake in Japan is, as much as I'm happy to drink sake every day, and I love Japanese food, but sometimes I want to have something different. Would sit there and think, I wish they'd have this. I wish they'd have this. So, I just kind of put my money where my mouth is, and I'm serving basically the food that I want to eat when I drink sake sometimes.
And you're also making it, right, Julian? You're not just the barman, you're also the chef and pretty much everything.
I would not say chef, and I don't think, and I apologize to any chefs out there that heard that. I'm not a chef by any means. We'll call it food preparation. Yeah, but I'm far from a qualified cook or anything, a chef or anything like that. But I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, to be honest, though, I started the first week I opened, I had 8 dishes on the menu, and I cut that down to 5 very quickly, and I'm going to cut that down to 4 next week.
Wow.
Partly because one, it was a lot of work, and two, it was the same things that people were ordering the same things anyway. And I was like, I don't need 8 because 8 dishes aren't getting ordered. Only 4 dishes are getting ordered anyway. So
That's very simplified.
yeah.
Was the licensing any different? In other words, I actually haven't yet seen the venue, although I hope to soon. And I don't know a ton about the service industry, but it seems to me if you were just serving sake, the licensing and the rules and the regulations, the equipment you need to prepare and everything like that would be different once you start serving food. So the first question is, are they different? And the second question is, could you make anything you really wanted to legally?
So yeah, there is basically as far as the licensing goes, if you are going to serve food, you have to have certain, and the health department regulates this, you have to have a certain, requirements in the venue that you have to meet in terms of, there has to be, like drainage in the area. So if you can hose it out kind of thing, if it needs to be hosed out, and there needs to be drainage in the floor, you need to have certain, hand washing stations and things like this. So it's more of a health department regulated thing in terms of the food. And if you don't have those, then you can still serve alcohol, but you can only serve food out of a packet. So sometimes, you've probably seen, snack pubs and whatever, where they serve alcohol, but they only serve literally packets of chips and nuts and things like that. And that's possibly because they don't have the building requirements to serve food properly. So I am fully licensed to do food. Everything. The only thing, obviously, which famously a lot of people know, is you need an extra license if you're going to serve fugu, blowfish. But I have no intention of doing that, so that wasn't an issue. So in theory, I could serve anything I want, but then of course, when you're looking for a venue, there's your landlord, and in my case, this was an issue. They want to know what you're going to make because there's other tenants around. So they're like, you're not going to be doing yakiniku or yakitori. You're going to have smoke everywhere in restaurants. So in theory, I mean, legally, yeah, I can do anything I want, but then you're limited by your landlord and your conditions of your lease.
How long is your lease, by the way?
2 years.
2 years. So we know you'll be around for at least 2 years.
We hope so.
And how long have you been open now?
Yeah, so on the 10th, I did 2 days of like a soft opening, and then I had a day off, and then I opened up properly on, I guess, what was the 13th. And I mean, even though the grand opening, if you want to call it a grand opening, was still kind of soft. I haven't pushed it that hard for 2 reasons. One, I didn't want to like go all out with the bells and whistles and saying grand opening, and then it would be awfully embarrassing if no one showed up. And then on the flip side, I also didn't want to go out with all the bells and whistles and saying grand opening and having everyone turn up and being completely overwhelmed and unable to, unable to deliver. So it's kind of, I'm taking it steady.
So you're just kind of easing into it. Sounds like a good ramp up kind of a thing, huh?
Yeah, easing into it, kind of seeing how, and it's working so far. It's good.
That's cool. So sometimes we hear that business is all about location, location, and location. And Umeda clearly checks off all 3 of those boxes. How and why did you choose a spot where you are? And I know you were considering other ones, but were they also in the Umeda area? How does that work? Or what did you do?
Well, no. So yeah, Umeda wasn't my first choice. My first choice was Juso, which is 2 stations, just very, very close to Umeda, but it's on the same train line that I live on. And Juso is a bit of an old school shitamachi drinking area, but they don't really have any sake bars. And so I was like that was where I was initially looking at. But the thing is with, and I think probably everyone finds the same thing, is when I mean, I think some people have also confused the idea that they've just hearing about me doing this, they've kind of confused that with me only just thinking of doing it without realizing that I've, been looking at doing this I was planning it for over a year. And so that image that you have in your head when you draw up your business plan and you're like, it's going to look like this, it's going to be here, and it's going to cost this much, the rent's going to be this much, it's going to be this size, and it's going to be this kind of decor, and you've got all that image. And then as time goes on, you just start, unless you've really got the money in the backing to do it 100% exactly what you want to do, you then start realizing you're going to have to compromise, and it's kind of like playing a slot machine, and you're not going to get all 5 of the same pictures up together, but if you can get 3, maybe that'll be good.
So what compromises did you have to make?
Well, the first one was, as I said, I was looking at Juso, and one, virtually nothing was opening up in Juso. That was one problem. And secondly, what was opening up was either extremely expensive and or in the red light district of Juso, which I was not. Despite how many times I was telling my real estate agents that I was like, I'm not looking to open up a sake bar in between, 2 massage parlors. But that was kind of the stuff that they kept coming back to me with. So
it seems like you're not the only one that doesn't want to open up there if there's that much availability.
Right. So that was the first thing. I was like, all right, I think Juso is going to be a tough one. So let's expand the location area. So I was looking at different areas. I also there's certain things, like I had a budget in mind for the rent, but then certain places will pop up and you think, well, if I'm in this location, I can probably afford to pay more rent because there's going to be a much better, flow of people. So, size and things everything became a compromise really. Like at some point, so I also, this is probably a good thing. When I first started planning it, as I mentioned, I was a bit more optimistic and ambitious with what I was going to do with the food. So I was looking at places that had a proper kitchen. And then over the year, as I was, kind of working on the food more, I realized that I was a bit too overambitious. So I started realizing I don't need a full kitchen. I'm not going to be going that hardcore with this. So the place that I've got now is not, a year ago, I would have not taken it because I would have said the kitchen's too small. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, no, this is enough. This will do. So, I was willing to compromise on basically any of the aspects, but just not all of the aspects. So it's just, yeah.
That sounds pretty wise, actually, quite prudent. I haven't been there. I know that Cindy has, but I haven't been there yet. But from what pictures I've seen on the internet, it looks like you have a counter for 4 or 5 and then 2 tables in the back of the room. Is that how it's set up?
Pretty much, yeah. Which was actually kind of the design that I had in mind. Admittedly, the counter is probably a little smaller than I had in mind. It can probably fit 5 Japanese, 4 non-Japanese.
Or small people, right? No.
Yeah. But also, and I'm kind of flexible with it. If people want to, a couple of nights ago, I had a bunch of people at the counter and they were like, we're going to stand so we can all fit in. I'm like, doesn't bother me if you guys want to stand up and drink, cool. So, if you want to fit in more people and stand around, that's all good. And same with the tables. The tables are designed for just 2 people each, but the seats go under the table. So if you come in with 4 people and want to stand, you can stand.
So you could probably get in, I don't know, 15 to 20 if people stand and mill around.
Probably 15, yeah. So I'll be looking at doing, eventually, once I settle in, doing some events with having brewers come in or Kuramoto come down. So when I have those events, I'll probably make it standing so I can get in more people.
You'll probably have to.
Yeah.
Because when I was there, it's actually, I didn't know what to expect, to be quite honest, because there was not a lot of photos online because it just opened. So I was quite surprised kind of what it looked like. I kind of thought because I know you're also a musician and you're a bit of a rock star, I really thought it would be very grungy and very lots of music references and posters and stuff. So I was actually quite surprised how elegant your bar is. Really looks like a very elegant kind of jazzy counter. And then the thing that John just said with the people, because you're the only person, it's really hard for you to probably also deal with 15, 20 people if you want to also explain the sake, right?
Right. And that was also always part of the thing. The kind of the philosophy of, if you like, is there's loads of I know we all know lots of good sake bars where they've got lots of sake, but if you don't know what the sake is, if you're that kind of person that's just walked in off the street, it's like, well, you don't know how to order and you don't know what the sake is, and often if it's kind of that catch-22 of being a popular sake bar, the staff's too busy to kind of talk to you. And sometimes the floor staff are just, they're just part-timers and they don't really know. And so if you ask a question, they call out to the boss and he's kind of busy down there doing something else. So even though it's probably much more, a financially wiser decision to make a bigger place and fit in more people and that kind of thing, was really adamant that I want it to be manageable where I can talk to people. So, and that's whether, whether it be for people that know about sake and want to just come in and nerd out, that's cool. And also for people that, visit and don't know much about sake that want to, sit down and have a chat and get to kind of gently, if you like, taken through it. That's kind of the design. So it was, yeah, a conscious decision to keep it manageable. But yeah, as terms of the design, I mean, yeah, it did turn out maybe a little bit more pretty than I or some people expected. And I did toy with the idea. I was like, I don't know, I kind of, a few people have said the same thing. They thought, oh, we thought you'd have like a bass hanging on the wall or something like that, or a guitar or something, or I don't know, I just kind of felt it was a bit on the nose. I don't know, maybe I will put some stuff up later that's music reference, but I don't know.
No, it's
I was
great.
kind
I
of
mean, I was like, this is a great place. And I do feel like it might grow in and change a little bit over the next couple of weeks or months now as you're running it.
it might, yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to ask, and this is a nice flow. I mean, there's all kinds of people out there, right? All kinds of potential customers and potential sake fans. But I guess I want to ask if you've got in mind your target clientele. In other words, are you looking for non-Japanese people, tourists, locals, a mix?
Yes, a mix pretty much. So again, going back to like you mentioned the location. So yeah, Umeda, for anyone that's not, familiar, is basically, it's kind of geographically north of Osaka, but it's functions as the central part of Osaka. And so it seems like, yeah, it's the best, one of the best places to be. But I'm a little bit away. So the location is about a 5-6 minute walk from Yoriyabashi Station on the Midosuji subway line and the Kyoto Keihan line. And it's probably about 7 minute walk from Higashi Umeda Station. And it's off the Shotengai, which is for anyone that doesn't know, the Shotengais are those undercover shopping streets all over Japan. And of course, a lot of people were like, if you're talking about location, you want to be in those places with a lot of foot traffic, and obviously the Shotengai is a place to be. But yeah, and then lining that up with talking about the types of people that I want to come, I want people to come to drink sake. If I was in the Shotengai, then you kind of run the risk of just having people just drop in off the street, and you get a couple of drunk salarymen, rock in, and they're like, just looking to get some chu-hais and highballs, and you're like, that's not this kind of place. And I don't want to come across as snobby either and be like, take your business elsewhere. We're not that kind of bar here. So I want it to be the kind of place where people have, looked it up, or, whether they've Googled, a sake bar, or whether they've found it on Instagram or something. And so they kind of come knowing what they're in for, rather than just, wandering off the street hoping to get, chu-hais and, big jugs of beer or something like that. Having said that, I do have a little bit of beer, and I do have a bottle of whiskey hidden behind the counter as well, in case anyone really wants to have a highball.
You can cover those too, but just a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
I assume the beer is canned and not in draft, because that would be a different level of complexity.
Yeah, that was also a thing. I did originally want to get do like craft beer on draft, but yeah, I just for simplicity, I'm like, just do it in cans for now. So that can be something to consider down the
You could always add that later, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many sake do you now carry on your menu?
So on the menus, like menu is kind of a loose word, because I didn't want to have like a massive list, overwhelming list of sake that you kind of have to update constantly. So I've only listed I've got this little menu which has about 8 sake on it that I'm kind of, and then I've kind of added, of course I have more sake if you want. So I think at the moment I have about 20 sake that are open, maybe just under that. And some of those are sake that are going to kind of move faster. They're the freshest styles, and some of them are, I've got a few aged things and whatnot that are probably going to sit around for a while. So on the main hop is about, I'd say about 12 is sake. So it's kind of the main ones, and there's just a few little things that are just like little curiosities that are hidden at the back of the fridge if people are interested.
Those are always fun. It's always fun to know that a proprietor carries things like that, so you can like look over his shoulder and see what he's got in the fridge and ask questions. Is that available?
Yeah. And that's kind of part of it as well, is because like, there is that kind of pressure of, you know, and I've had it already, of people coming in and saying, what's your most interesting sake? What's your rarest sake? And you know, I don't really want to get into to that kind of, you know, just being rare for the sake of rare kind of thing. But yeah, you do kind of, you know, if you don't want people to walk in and as well and just look and go, I know what all this sake is. I've had all this before. Boring. But
no, I thought it was great. No, I mean, I think generally when I go into a sake bar, and I don't know how you're doing this, John, I mean, I don't really want to order the stuff that I know. Because I kind of want to see what else is there. So I think coming into your bar, it was really great to just be like, what do you have, you know? And you would just pull out these bottles from under the counters and be like, well, I could do this, right? Or there's something else over here. And I was there with a guy who doesn't really drink any sake, and he was like totally convinced that he's going to drink much more sake and come back to your bar, because he was also a bit like, I don't like Osaka, but now I think I really want to come back here.
It's great.
I thought that was quite special. I know you also run out of your stuff though quite quickly, because I also recommended something that I had to a friend who's going to come and join you, and you sadly had to tell me it was already gone. So the stuff that you have, the 12, like 10, 12 sake that you talked about, are you generally going to have that all the time, or are you consistently moving your inventory?
Yeah, so the thing, I mean, I guess things in this, like, you know, because obviously things like you know, like hot sake, warm sake doesn't move as fast, and aged sake. So those ones, you know, if someone was to come and you know, try some of the kanzake, and then maybe try some of the aged sake, and then come again in 3 or 4 weeks, they might be disappointed to find that it's still the same stuff there, because that stuff doesn't move as quickly. But the other stuff, yeah, I'll be looking to, you know, rotate that kind of regularly, and it's one of the good things about I mean, it's a kind of a good and a bad thing about running a sake bar. Is one of the things which people might not realize is compared to beer or wine, and especially for overseas, there's no discount for being a sake bar. So when I'm buying sake for the bar, I'm paying the same prices that you guys pay, that everyone pays when you go to a shop and buy sake. You don't get a discount. So which also means, in a way, it takes away the pressure or to like stick with one proprietor and say, I'm going to buy all my sake from you because you're my guy. It's like, well, he's not really doing me massive favors, because it's just, I'm still just buying, you know, the same price. And sake shops realize that as well. So you're free to just like go wherever you want and source sake from wherever you want without feeling like you're cheating on your other sake shops.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Are you using just one distributor? Do you have a couple? Do you sometimes get stuff right from the brewer?
I haven't got anything direct from the brewers yet, but I'm hoping to kind of open up those channels. But yeah, I mean, that obviously that was the most fun part about opening up a sake bar, is going around and buying all the sake for it. Trying not to get carried away.
Wait, you actually physically went to the various stores to buy the sake?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You can't really continue that, can you? I mean, it's like a lot of resources for just.
Well, I mean, no, I won't continue that all the time, but I will continue. I mean, and this is, you know, kind of goes against what I just said about, like, you know, you're not having that pressure to, you know, be loyal to one particular sake shop. But as a lot of people advise me about, is you might not get a discount, but also liquor stores also have, the sake shops have, you know, they're getting sake that's for restaurants only, that the regular public can't get, and things like that. So you have to kind of also maintain those relationships and go in there and have a chat with the guys and tell them what you like and tell them what you're looking for. And so then when they do get in those, you know, special secret sakes that the general public can't get, they might shoot me an email and say, you know, we got this in, do you want it? So I'm also kind of, you know, that is part of it as well, as like, maintaining keeping those relationships up at the same time.
It sounds to me like it's a great situation, because you get to buy and sell and drink yourself exactly what you want, and that can change as often as you like. That's pretty cool, actually.
And some of them, you know, and most of these sake stores are not, well, not all of them, but some of them are pretty close to where I either live or where I'm working. So, I mean, literally after we do this, I'm going down the road to my local sake shop to pick up a couple of bottles, because they got in some good stuff. And yeah, it's a bicycle. I'm just bicycling up the road and just stick it in my backpack, and then I'll take it to the shop tonight.
Nice.
That's fun. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's expandable or scalable, but it certainly
But
sounds
also
like
there are
fun.
some places like near the shop where I can go down, see what they've got, see what's new. And if I'm busy or if if I have my hands full, I can say, oh, I want this, 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 and they'll just deliver it to me later on. Yeah.
That's cool. So as you know, I live in Kamakura, about an hour south of Tokyo, so Kanto. And up here in Kanto, they tend to focus on, of course, Kanto sake, but uh, more often than not, they look east to Tohoku than they do to Kansai or Western Japan. It's not a complete dearth of Western Japan sake, but it's a lot harder to find small brewers from the Kansai area and Western Japan area than it is to find sake from Tohoku up here. And in what little time I've spent in Kansai looking around, it seems to be a little bit of the same way. I don't think I see nearly as much Tohoku stuff down there as I do Western Japan stuff, be that Kansai or farther west. Uh, and you nodded, which makes me think you're probably seeing
Yeah.
the same thing. Do you have any effort to like push the Tohoku envelope to go out of your way to get stuff from northeastern Japan, or you just kind of got to roll with what you've got locally? Certainly, you've got enough to work with.
Yeah, it's kind of a balance. And it's funny because I don't normally, and I this was one thing which was kind of funny when I opened up and people came in and I was like saying, here's all the sake that I've got. Because I didn't by region at all when I was choosing the sake. That was probably the last thing I was looking at was the region. And I just by chance, once I had them all there and bought them all, then when customers pointed out to me, I was like, yeah, now that you mention it, I've got 6 sake from Nagano. How did that happen? I did,
Yeah, I did notice one when on the
I was like,
pictures on the internet
I
about how did
didn't,
that happen?
because I wasn't choosing by region at all. I was purely just choosing stuff that I liked, and it just happened to be, and I've never considered myself necessarily a massive Nagano fan, but I was just like, oh, okay, just that's how the cards fell, kind of thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a balance because you know, yeah, obviously it's easy to get great sake from the Kansai region, but also then and that would be interesting for people that visit, from other areas. Because another little point is I'm next to a fairly large hotel called the Hotel Elysiant, which has a mix of foreign and Japanese guests, and I did have a guy came in from Chiba, and he was so happy to come in, and he was like, "Oh, you've got Akishika," and I was like, "Of course I've got Akishika. You can get, throw a rock and you'll hit Akishika in this area. It's like it's everywhere." So you want to have that balance of having some, Kansai sake to appease, visitors and also to kind of show support for the local region. But yeah, also you want to have stuff from outside the area that's not as easy to get for the locals that they, because yeah, I mean it's that flip side. There's sake from Kanto even that for Kanto people they'll probably think, oh, that's nothing special, but for here it's a bit of a big deal. So yeah, I'm trying to balance it.
It sounds like a good
Mm.
philosophy. I'm getting more excited to get down there. So what about back to your
Mm.
menu? Sometimes when you go to sake shops, you get the stuff written out, the class of the sake, then the prefecture, and then you get like all kinds of stats. Seimaibui, Nihonshido, I don't know, amino acid content,
Mm.
how many illegal, I don't know, how many children the Kuramoto has, whatever. Much more data than you need. Uh, and I'm wondering, to a certain degree, that's helpful. In other words, if people don't know a lot about sake, they're probably going to want a little bit more about it. Another thing would be tasting notes,
Mhm.
right? But when you're moving stuff in and out all the time, that to me sounds like it would be a
Yeah.
hassle.
No?
So, what does your menu look like? In other words, how much data do you have for each sake, or is it just really minimal? And then the follow-up question is, in what language do you write your menu, or is it both?
Yes, Julian, tell me about your menu, please.
She's saying that because she thought I didn't have a menu because I didn't pull out the English menu for her. I left the Japanese menu there in front of her.
No.
She missed
Which
it.
Oh,
which was a teeny tiny, almost like a business card size menu with almost
It
no
is.
information. And I was like, you didn't have a menu. And he was like, I have it. I just didn't give it to you.
It is as it says, it's very small. It's the size of a photo. It's it's and like for the first few days I didn't have a menu, and then I thought, well, I do need to have a basic menu because what I was doing was just pulling everything out of the fridge and showing people what I've got. And I was like, well, this is never gonna, this is kind of too much work. So I did, that's why I listed up, about 8 of the sake that I'm, kind of featuring or trying to push or whatever. And no, I didn't. I was like, I didn't want to put all the information on it because I think sometimes for some places the reason why they put all that information on there is because going back to what we said before, they don't have time to talk to you. Um,
Right,
they're busy
right.
and just like the menu is doing the talking for them. Whereas I wanted to have that thing of saying, well, here's a sake, it's called, this, and it's a junmai. And then if you want to know anything beyond that, let's have a conversation, let's interact, let's talk. So yeah, I deliberately didn't put too much information. Well, for 2 reasons. One, I'm lazy, and two, it is just to encourage the conversation. And same with the food menu. So like I said, the food menu, and this has been fun, it's because it's all Western food or at least non-Japanese food. Probably not, shouldn't say Western exactly. And Japanese people don't know what it is. But it encouraged, like I've got hummus on the menu, and 99% of Japanese people have never had hummus before. So at first I did actually end up putting an explanation next to it of basically what hummus is. But it was, fun because it just encourages that interaction of them saying, what's hummus? And then explaining what hummus is. And then there was, I've got saganaki halloumi cheese, which again, most Japanese people have never had before. And they're like, what's saganaki? And then it may seem like there's one, you could look at it as being, why aren't you giving people this information? It's because I want to, encourage the personal interaction and actually having a conversation instead of just like pointing and saying, well, it's all there on the menu.
Have you considered, and this isn't a suggestion, it's an open question. Have you considered like an informational menu? In other words, not necessarily a menu, but a folder that'll tell people basically what a junmaishu is, basically what a yamahai is, basically what an unpasteurized sake is, how this stuff is made in the very most basic sense, to save yourself from having the same conversation over and over, so you can take the conversation to another level. You know
Well,
what I mean?
one, I've got a little on top of the fridge. I've got a selection of books and stuff like that for people to browse if they wish. And also, so what I'm looking to do, hopefully, definitely by April, so at some point during March, is I will want to run like kind of tasting classes in the hours before I open. So I open at 5 o'clock, so maybe like at 3 o'clock or something, and have like a reservation only, marketed at tourists, visitors to Japan, or maybe it doesn't have to be tourists, it can be anyone that's lives in Japan and lives in Osaka and wants to come down and have a taste. But yeah, just kind of walk people through sake, through a tasting, give them the basic information, the most basic information they need to know, and some vocabulary to arm themselves to then go drinking for the rest of their trip in Japan. I do tour guiding in Japan, taking people to sake bars, and I meet a lot of people that they're in the middle of their trip and they say, we've been here, we haven't been drinking much sake because we just don't know how to order it. And so that's kind of the idea, is like, come here, I'll give you the skinny, and I'll give you enough information to confidently, with a little cheat sheet kind of thing of, to arm yourself and head out into the world and order some sake while you're in Japan for the next, week or two.
That sounds like it'll have some good practical applications. So what about the name? I mean, sake house, it's appropriate. It's kind of zen in its directness and simplicity. How did you arrive at that?
I don't know why, but like, I mean, I guess I do know why, but I've for some reason, I was from the very beginning, I was stuck on using my name somehow, because
Oh, I didn't even
Oh,
catch
really?
that.
serious.
Honestly, I
Because I
didn't
thought
catch
that's so
that.
smart.
I didn't.
Julian Houseman. It's the sake house,
Well,
right?
obviously, it's not going to work on everybody. What was that,
Because it's
Cindy?
Julian Houseman, right? So it's the sake house. So
Right.
I thought it was
Yeah,
very
I didn't
witty.
catch that. It's a perfectly cool name. I just didn't see that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and I suppose when you see it on like my on my business card, it makes sense because it's like sake house and then written right under as Julian Houseman, and then people kind of put it together pretty quickly. But yeah, for some reason I was, because obviously every time I meet people in Japan, they're kind of fascinated by my last name, because it's probably rare to meet a foreigner with a name with 2 English words that they totally understand. House and man, everyone knows those. Regardless of their English level, they know those 2 words. So they're always kind of fascinated. It's such a simple name. So I wasn't going to call it Sake Man. I wasn't going to use the man part of my name. That sounds probably a bit.
Yeah, that would be as
No.
catchy.
But I was determined to. I don't know why, but I was just stuck on using house somewhere in the name. So I went through all different incarnations of, house sake, sake house, jizake house, nihonshu house, house nihonshu, house sakaba, and all these different kind of names. And I didn't do a lot of market research in terms of getting people to help me, because I didn't want to get overwhelmed with opinions, and the name actually turned out to be one of those, where because I was really I couldn't decide. So I did actually at one point go to my local sake pub and kind of had this list of 10 names and said to the regulars, what do you think is the best name? Which name resonates the best with Japanese people? And all of them had different opinions, and I was like, that was completely pointless in me asking. So yeah, so I ended up going, look, I'm just going to have to just bite the bullet and do it myself. So I ended up with going sake. Yeah,
That's cool. By the way, what are you doing about Okan? Are you offering warm
Yep.
sake?
Yes. I've got a few options there. Probably got about eight to 10 sakes that can be warmed up.
8 to 10. So I got to ask, how do you warm it?
Well, so probably everyone imagines when you go to a nice sake bar and they have those lovely wooden kansake. Have you got one?
I've got like 2 or 3.
Really? Oh,
The big boxes where you put the tin thing into the I don't know, the
and the electric
tube.
ones that you plug it in.
Oh, I don't have an
Right.
electric one. I boil the water and
Right.
pour it in. I can do that much on my own, but
Well, those
I don't know. Oh, kansuke
kansuke,
they
yeah.
call it.
So
Yeah, I've got several of
but
those.
those boxes that you see in restaurants, that the actual box that can hold about 4 of those chiroris, and or even the one that holds 2, they are surprisingly expensive.
Yeah,
The one that holds 4 is about $800, and even the one that holds 2 is about 600. And so I was like, I just can't see myself spending that much money on unless I was a kanzake bar, and I was trying to find one secondhand. And honestly, I started looking around and kind of peeking over the counter at some, because it's one of those things I probably hadn't paid as much attention to in a lot of sake bars. So I started looking, going, what is everyone using? And some places do use the kansuke. And then I started, I was like, there's people that are just like, doing it in a pot on the stove kind of thing. And then a couple of places they're like, we just stick it in the kettle. And so like open up the top of the kettle and just pop the chirori in. So that's what I'm doing.
no, that's perfectly cool. Again, I don't mean to beleaguer this point, but do you use a thermometer to check it?
Yeah.
Or you just wing it?
And the
cool.
kettle has a button to once you boil it, you can then maintain it, so I can keep it at 50 degrees, and
That is cool.
Very smart.
Have you had any major happenings, like brawls or fist fights over Yamada Nishiki versus Omachi or Kimota versus Yamahai, or this should be Nurukan, not Atsukan?
No,
Not yet.
no, not yet. I mean, in one of the things which we did have someone in the other day that was kind of opinionated and kind of wrong, and there was another customer there that and we could kind of doing a bit of eye contact there of I could see the other customer was biting his tongue, and I was just letting it go. And I said, after that customer left, I said, well, this is kind of how I do want to if people are looking to learn something, I'm happy to help with knowledge and teach people a little bit but if someone comes in and wants to just spout their knowledge and I don't want to be that kind of sake bar where I'm like, look, I'm the master, and this is how it goes here, and I'm not. So sake house doesn't have any philosophy. It's not a junmai bar. It's not a murokunama genshu bar. It's not an aged bar. It's not a kansai bar. It's an everything bar, and it's like I don't want to be that kind of place where you have to drink this way and you have to have it this way. If you don't, this sake has to be served cold. You can I do want it to be kind of chilled and relaxed, and I don't want people to feel that there's all these rules that you have to follow to drink in sake house. It's kind of chill.
Yeah, those are not fun places. sake pubs and rules are not really
But
fun
there's a lot of them
places.
out there. There's a lot of them out there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't go to those either. Although they're sometimes fun to just stew in that kind of environment and watch what goes on around
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
but I don't know, not too often. So another question. I mean, what about music? You're a musician, and is curating your music something you do as strictly as curating your sake? I mean,
Um,
do you leave it to one genre? Do you just plug in the Usen and let it roll, or
no,
what?
no, I'm not using the Usen. For anyone that doesn't know, yeah, Usen is like how would you describe Usen? It's like a cable
Cable
radio. That's
radio?
a good explanation.
That's what
Yeah.
I would do.
So no, I'm just playing my own music, but yes, it's one of those things where I probably put considering how important other things are in a business, I probably put way too much thought into the music. It was sitting around sometimes just making a list of, I want to play this, I want to play this. It's like, dude, that's not as important as some of these financial things you need to be looking at. Um, so yeah, no, yeah, trying to, but I mean, that's a funny thing though. It's like, and I've learned to be careful saying I'm playing good music because then everyone just like looks and goes, well, what do you think is good music?
Mm.
So it's very subjective, but
Yeah, but something tells me you got a strong position when it comes to that.
but
Nice.
I,
I mean, how many of your customers are actually professional musicians on top of it? Probably not too many. And those that are probably have a right to their opinion,
But are
though.
you also
well,
going to bring your bass into the bar every now and then? Are you going to do a little concert?
no,
Or is this off the table? I
no.
was kind of hoping there might be like an
I'd,
impromptu.
I, I have to admit, a lot of my musician friends were very disappointed because as soon as they found out I had a bar, they were, their first question is there space to have live music? And I'm no. So I feel like I've let the scene down there a little bit that there's not enough space to have live music. But I have been,
It's part of the compromises you were talking about
yeah,
earlier.
yeah. I mean, you could probably fit in like an acoustic guitarist or something like that. I might do that one day. You never know. But I have been updating Instagram with the daily background music, today's BGM. So
Which Instagram account?
Sake House.
I went out there this morning. I didn't see anything about music at all.
Oh, I probably deleted it because I'm a bit anal about not leaving up my stories and stuff up once they're irrelevant. So once the day's waiting is over, I feel there's no point in leaving up the information, so I delete it on the
Yeah. But you're
Interesting.
doing a really good
Oh,
job at uploading things. Because the one thing about the menu we talked earlier about, when I went that day, I saw your hummus picture on your Instagram story and I kind of pre-ordered it because I was like, oh, this looks delicious. Do you have this? I order one. So it's actually quite nice to see kind of some of your sake that you have behind the bar and some of the food that you have going. So for anybody that's listening, that's a good follow to get a bit more visuals
Yes, it's
on what's happening.
I'll have to check it out again. So, do you see yourself ever needing to and wanting to hire someone to work with you? In other words, in a year or two, maybe have someone handle some of the back stuff so that you can engage with customers more. And is that part of the plan, or is that not on the table?
um I can't see it in the space. I mean, it's a small place, so I don't think unless it was maybe an event or something, I can't see me really needing another person. But having said that, I mean, said it's a 2-year lease, so I'm gonna, see how this goes for 2 years, and if it's a roaring success, I might look at moving out into somewhere bigger, and that might then include, having someone else, come on board, have some kind of staff of some description. But at the same time, I'm wary of not being a hypocrite and then like saying, well, this was really good, so now I'm going to open up a place that seats, 30 people, and then I become that place where we don't have time to talk to anyone, and we write all the tasting notes on the menu and just leave everybody to it. So I do kind of want to maintain that level of contact. So
Maybe keep it small then. Just have to see how it
yeah,
unfolds.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is another thing which, again, when I announced I was opening a bar, so many people were very concerned about whether I had other forms of income. And I do still have other forms of income, so I'm not completely reliant on this to pay my bills. But as long as it's bringing in some money and it's not running in the red, then we'll keep it going.
Yeah, and the next question then is, what are your hours? And I don't mean what are your business hours. I mean, you said you open at 5, and when do you
Yes,
close? So let
11.
me ask you this. When do you actually
Hmm.
get to Sake House and when do you actually leave it?
Um, well, that's the good. I mean, it's funny because like the first week, I was just running on fumes. I thought I was going to die because I was in there like at 9 o'clock in the morning doing all sorts of things and whatnot. And now, almost 3 weeks in, and having, scaled down the food menu a little bit. I'm not, because I think some people when they think of, they think of the, they're thinking I'm running a 100-seater restaurant kind of thing. People are like, you'll never have a minute to yourself again. It's like, well, it's not that big. So, and the food's kind of prepped to last a couple of days kind of thing. So it's like I'm not in there like constantly chopping onions for hours before I open or anything like that. The food's pretty much done. So like on a day like today, I'll get there about 4. I've got a tiny bit of, like I said, I've got to drop in at a sake store and do a tiny bit of like, grocery shopping of, so I'll get there about 4 an hour before I open. I'll kind of do another clean and sweep things up and make things look nice. And uh, the again, I mean, I haven't had to enforce the last order kind of thing. Most people are, kind of, I have had people stay until the end, but they're kind of not eating, so I haven't had to cut them off and say, I'm closing the kitchen now. But yeah, just while we were talking, I'll just kind of start cleaning up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, my last train to get me home is at 12:10. So closing at 11, and I've had people stay a bit later. Still, that's plenty of time for me to kind of shut it down and do a quick clean and then get on that train home. And if it's not as clean as I like, I can do that the next day. So
That sounds actually fairly sustainable, is what it sounds. More
yeah,
productive.
I think basically I mean, actually yesterday I just we've had some family stuff, and so I actually didn't get to the bar until 4:40, 20 minutes before opening time. So that was kind of a mad rush of getting things ready. But it just also showed that as long as I'm prepped, it's possible. They're going and open up at last minute.
Sounds like you got your rhythm down.
When is your off days?
So closed on Sunday, definitely. So Sundays is the day off, and then generally Monday will be my other day off. Will be closed as well, but will be somewhat flexible. So if I have other things on, such as music gigs, I might, if I have a gig that's worth doing, I might do that and open on the Monday and close for the Wednesday and stuff like that. But Sunday's definitely closed.
I'll bear those in mind. Can you tell us in words the easiest way to find Sake House?
The two things I'm not a Facebook guy, so Instagram sakehouse_Osaka and Google Maps. So I will be updating Google Maps regularly with my hours if there's any changes there. But I'm going to be doing my best to keep Instagram thoroughly updated. It's not hard to find. It's kind of difficult to explain in words. But if you're in Umeda and there's the Ohatsu Tenjin Shotengai, which is everybody knows it. Everyone local knows the Ohatsu Tenjin Shotengai. So Ohatsu Tenjin is a popular shrine there in Osaka. And if you can find that, then you'll be able to find me. I'm just less than a bit of a block maybe away from there.
So maybe get into that Shotengai and then switch on Google Maps or something like that.
Yeah.
It's actually really easy to find. Like I was very surprised how easy,
Yeah.
because especially when you come from Kyoto, you can go on the Keihan line, you get off in Yodobayashi, and it's like a 10 minutes walk straight from the station. You just cross the bridge and then you see your little board outside. So it's very visible. So I was actually very surprised with how quickly
Yes.
we got there and how easy it was to find there.
Yeah, it's not winding roads or anything. It's pretty much a straight shoot from wherever you come.
Cool.
Hmm.
Well, I look forward to getting down there. I don't know if I can get there before my next trip to the US, but after I come back, I'll make sure that I get down there as soon as possible.
I actually have one more question for Julian. So if people do come to your bar, like how would you recommend them to order? Like, is there something that you'd say, like, just describe to me what you like to drink, look in the fridge and point at something, like, what is your recommendation for people who come and visit you?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because and I mean this with no offense to anyone else out there that does do this style of serving, but I'm not a fan of the party trick of saying, tell me what you normally drink and I'll find the sake that I know some people do that, and if it works for you, cool. But like, I don't want to sit there and say, oh, you normally drink, Californian Cabernet or whatever. Well, you would like this sake. I'm not doing that. I just want sake to be what it is. So, it does sound vague, but yeah. I mean, if people want to choose by the label, that's cool. But if they just, I do, and a few people have said it. They said, well, just tell me what, show me what you think is good, and then we'll work from there. And I can pour you like a little server and say, well, look, this is what I personally think is a good sake. This tastes good. And if they drink it and they say, well, this is too fruity, or this is too earthy, or this is too heavy, then it's like, well, now we know where to work from there and kind of narrow it down and go somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've find in general, again, this goes back to when I've been, doing tour guiding, taking people out to sake bars. If people are, if they are drinkers in general, it's pretty rare that they'll drink something and say that sucked. That was really not what I wanted. You know what I mean? If they're a non-drinker, if they don't drink any, if they don't drink, alcohol in general, then there's a higher risk, I think, of them saying, well, I don't like alcohol much, and that just kind of reinforced it. But if there's someone that likes alcohol in general and they drink a bit of wine, they drink a bit of beer, they drink a bit of, cocktails and stuff like that, if you give them something that's, of a good quality, that's a good quality sake, it's pretty rare that they'll look you straight in the eye and go, that was rubbish, didn't enjoy it. They might just say, yeah, it was okay, but I would like something with more body, or that was okay, but I'd like something a bit sweeter, or like that was okay. They'll give you those kind of directives. So yeah, but I mean, and again, I have kind of said to people that the thing with sake houses, and I said before, I don't have any of those strict philosophies. So I really want it to be a place with no intimidation, or there's no pretentiousness or anything in sake house. It's not.
Everybody's welcome, right?
Yeah, just come in and chill, and hopefully you'll find something that you like. If you haven't tried sake before. But yeah, there's no. I'm not pushing any kind of agenda or style or anything like that. It's just like come in and try some good sake.
And then, I mean, just following up on this as well, like, is it expensive to drink and eat at your bar?
I mean, it depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from the States, definitely not. If you're coming from Australia, definitely not. I've had quite a few that, my Japanese customers tell me I'm too cheap. But no, I mean the glasses start at 650 yen for 90 mils. And then I'm also trying to kind of be reasonable with that in terms of because obviously I have some sake that's more expensive, but I don't want to be selling it for crazy prices. So you kind of look at making bigger margins on cheaper sake, which helps you lower the price on some of the more expensive sake. Again, one of the things that I have also a little heavy on the menu, not heavy, I would say, but more than a lot of other sake bars, is I'm trying to get in some good futsushu, because I think that's an underrated and overlooked market.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's been very successful too. It's like and you don't even have to tell people it's futsushu. Just like it's a lot of it, it's like it has a process that you can align and say, well, this is a Yamahai. You have to tell them it's a futsushu. It is a Yamahai futsushu. So drink it as being that.
That's cool. Good on you. I hope that continues to be worthwhile for you, because I like to see that continue. That's cool.
Yeah. I got a guy. I got a guy. Don't worry.
You got a guy.
I got a futsushu guy that's hooking me
I
up.
love it.
Well, that's cool.
Very cool.
It sounds extremely enjoyable. I'm looking very much forward to getting down there as soon as I can.
And I'll be back very soon. This is because it's so convenient. It's actually just so convenient. I love it.
So Julian, again, congratulations on the opening of Sake House. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm sure you got to get in and start to take care of business for today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing anyone and everyone soon.
If you want to share where people can find you, we can put all your information in the show notes. In other words, your SNS contacts and things like that. Anyone who's listening and has the chance to come to Japan, be sure to drop by Sake House in Osaka. If you enjoyed this episode, do give us a like and a review on this platform on which you're listening to this. And if you have any questions or comments at all, please do share them with us at questions@sakeonair.com or head over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We would love to hear from you. We'll be back very soon with plenty more of Sake on Air. Until then, kampai.
This episode has been made possible with the generous support of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. Sake on Air is produced by Export Japan, and our team is Justin Potts, Miho Ota, Cindy Bissig, Sebastian Lemoine, John Gottner, Chris Hughes, Rebecca Wilson-Lai, Marie Nagata, Christopher Pellegrini, Arlene Lyons, Shuso Imada, and Frank Walter.